I want to talk about another story that is interesting that has come out, which is that Joe Lacob. Joe Lacob, for those of you who don't know, is the owner of the Golden State Warriors. I mean, that's a first-class dork right there. But he's a dork that I have to give him this. When they were winning 50 games and they were telling us that Mark Jackson was holding them back and he was making all these faces at them during games, I was like, well, how good do you expect Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to be? And score one for Joe Lacob, right? he was there, but then he went too far. And he said they were light years ahead of everybody else. And those light years didn't really last that long.
What's the most valuable franchise in the NBA right now, Bomani? And would you have believed when I told you that with Mark Jackson and all the smirks that he was giving to Mark Jackson, that it would one day be the Golden State Warriors by a mile? You would have thought I was crazy.
No, in a world with the New York Knicks in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, no, it is crazy. Like, he's pulled this off. He just has this knack of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Like, remember when they won the championship and he gave credit to whoever it was in the front office for getting guys to all those great contracts? Translation, way to work these suckers and not give them as much money as they probably deserve. I was like, what are you talking about, right? He said something crazy about Steph, I feel like, up there. I was like, what are you doing? His latest, what are you doing? After, by the way, the two timeline situation where he tried to win for now and later, which was hubris, just the ultimate hubris. You can't do that in this league. But anyway, now we are here. Some fans sent him an angry email about the current state of the franchise. And for whatever reason, and this happens from time to time, Joe Lacob replied. He, as the kid said, had time. I am trying to find word for word what it is that Joe Lacob said, but the long and the short, Steve Kerr has said that he didn't have a problem with this reply to the email, which I can't promise you that I would feel that way. But Lacob said to the person who said that Jimmy Butler was being utilized improperly because the roster didn't have enough size, and he said he was really frustrated. And Joe Lacob replied, "You can't be as frustrated as me. I am working on it. It's complicated. Style of play. Coaches desire regarding players, league trends. Jimmy is not the problem." And I felt like Jimmy's the only person to come out of this unscathed.
Man, Steve Kerr can read that and say, that's a shot at me. And anytime you have owner emails going out in public, not a great look. It's not something you as an NBA head coach want to deal with at a press conference and have to answer for that. But it's very clear that Joe Lacob wants Jonathan Kuminga and the Moses Moody experiment to work in his favor, because he was out here bragging about the two timelines and saying, hey, we can win championships and develop players at the same time. The problem with that is if Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody aren't it, you can't go back and redo those picks, Bomani. That's the thing about being right in the draft is you only got those two swings. And if you strike out on those two swings, then you got to pack it up and say, all right, we made a mistake and we're getting off of this and we're going to go get some veterans. They still haven't moved off the Jonathan Kuminga thing. They haven't. And we're now here where he's making $22 million a year to be getting DNP CDs. And Steve Kerr does not want Jonathan Kuminga out there. He's made it very clear that by benching him in these games in which they need help. I just did the Blazers game. The Blazers are 3-0 against the Golden State Warriors. And Jonathan Kuminga the other night didn't play a single minute in that game in which Stephen Curry had 48 points. It is not a good situation there in Golden State, under 500 here with Jonathan Kuminga in the doghouse. And I got to say, the more that this plays out, I think the Golden State Warriors are losing leverage. And this is the problem by bringing back Jonathan Kuminga when everyone knows he's not here for the long haul, is the more that this plays out, the larger chance that this is a situation where they're going to lose they have to give up an extra first round pick to move off of this guy. It's not a good situation. And Joe Lacob, at some point, he can't be sending those emails out with those kind of particulars, because in this day and age, it's going to get out, dude.
Yeah. And look, Jimmy, you could argue, is not the player that he was, but the player that he is still really good. Steph is not the player that he was, but the player that he is still really good. Like, their top two guys. I mean, Jimmy's putting up 51 from the floor, 44 from three, 85 from the line. Like, that's what you're getting out of Jimmy Butler. Like, they still have it at the top. But if you weren't going to play Kuminga, then it just had, I mean, they got off a Wiseman a long time ago, right? I have been fascinated by the fact that this one he just can't let go of. And I said last year, I got a lot of hell for this, where I was like, the discussions were coming up about the idea of LeBron going to the Warriors, which would never happen. But I'm like, hey, don't give up your best young player in order to make that trade. I was like, I would keep Kuminga under them circumstances, but not if it's going to be, if this is what you do.
Yeah, it's not because I don't think it's Jimmy Butler's fault that they're at where they're at. I think it's a roster problem. I think right now the Golden State Warriors have no athleticism, and the one guy who does seem to have it in terms of like the ability to jump really high and finish at a high level, Jonathan Kuminga, can't get on the floor because Steve Kerr flat out does not trust that guy. It's very clear that he does not trust that guy to play the kind of basketball, and that's why I think style of play is doing a lot of work in that email, because I think what he wants to say, or the implication is, he's not going to be playing the Steve Kerr brand of basketball. The IQ that you need on the basketball court to play with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, I don't think Jonathan Kuminga is about that life. And we're going to try to figure out the best situation here, but that's the coach. And Jimmy Butler is not the problem. It's that they have Al Horford, who's hurt and dealing with a very 40-year-old injury that LeBron knows very well, sciatica. This is a team that does not have much athleticism, and they're forced to play a lot of 3-guard lineups. And in today's NBA, man, it can't be Steph Curry is dropping 48 points in a loss. It can't happen when you have a guy who's at this stage of his career, done this much for your franchise, and he is the reason they're number one in valuation on the NBA chart and up there with the Dallas Cowboys. He is the reason, and he can't be out here averaging 30 points a game and being on an under 500 team. That is a problem. And the Golden State Warriors, man, I believed in them this year, but a lot of it was hinged on a 40-year-old Al Horford doing the things he was doing for Boston last year, and he hasn't been MIA for a lot of this season.
Steph Curry turns 38 in March.
We don't. The thing about he and Chris Paul is we don't typically see guys this small playing this deep into their careers and still being effective. Like Chris Paul playing 82 games, starting 82 games for the Spurs last year is just unheard of. Steph Curry averaging 30 at age 38 is unheard of. It's unheard of to see him playing at age 38 at the size that he is, much less being one of the top 10 players in the league. But that's where we're at with Steph Curry. And maybe if you give one thing to Joe Lacob is like, we had to do the two timeline thing because we could never expect Stephen Curry and Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler to be out here playing at this kind of level. We had to get some young players in here to fulfill that pipeline. But man, when you have a Steph Curry averaging 30 points a game on 50% shooting and 40% from three, you got to build for now. And now it's really hard to do that when Jonathan Kuminga has zero trade value.
I feel like I have always thought the world of Steph Curry, right? Like I covered that tournament in 08, right? The games at Raleigh. Like I've been there for a lot of it. I've seen him play at Cameron Indoor Stadium at Davidson, right? And then he got to the NBA, and I feel like for the last 17 years, without even realizing I was doing it, I managed to underestimate him at just about every turn while also thinking the world of him. And that just continues every year and every day, because there's no way in the world that I thought with the type of game that he had that he could still be like this as it is. I have been able to come up with a but for just about every portion of his career, and he just wipes his ass with every single one of them and then hold it up to my face and be like, smell it.
Yeah, how does it taste?
It's right there. But at the same time, outside of that championship in 2022, what are we talking about post Kevin Durant in terms of the Warriors and their performance? And the answer is not really that much. But I think you raised a point. It's kind of because they've underestimated him, one could argue.
Oh, yeah. And when Joe Lacob is out here in a championship speech and saying, hey, shouts to the organization for putting this roster together and leaving out Stephen Curry and his name and what he's done for the franchise, I think you can safely say that everyone in that organization and everyone in the NBA underestimated Steph Curry, and he is still out here in top 10 in the scoring in the NBA at age 38 is absurd. But I can't see him being moved. I can't see Stephen Curry not finishing out his career with the Golden State Warriors. So it becomes incumbent on the Warriors to put the pieces around him to succeed. And that's why the Giannis Antetokounmpo sweepstakes is really interesting here, because Jimmy Butler was pursued by the Phoenix Suns And his contract lines up pretty clean with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And so you can see a world in which the Milwaukee Bucks say, we don't really want Jimmy Butler on this team, but we could want all the picks that you have and some of the young players on the Phoenix Suns. So why don't we just all come together and say, hey, Jimmy Butler, I know you couldn't work things out with Phoenix when he was in Miami, but let's get a 3-team trade here. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green playing for the Warriors one last time for Steph Curry to make one last championship push. And he's got Giannis on his team, which got to give Jimmy Butler credit for how well he's played with Golden State when he's healthy, but he ain't Giannis Antetokounmpo. And that's why things are really interesting for me.
I will say this. The Phoenix attempts to get Jimmy Butler were a full-on clown show. It was the dumbest. I'm fairly aware of what was going on with that one. It was stupid. Like that's the best that I'll say that I'm comfortable saying right now is I trust that Phoenix will find a way to mess it up if it comes down to doing that. By the way, somehow they are better than we thought that they would be. I want to throw one last thing at you before we get out of here. How do you think this last year of LeBron, well, maybe it's not the last, but the LeBron Lakers 25-26, where LeBron can have games, but it's obvious he's 40-something years old. It's a world where Austin Reeves can average 30 points a game when he doesn't have a calf injury, and where Luka's gotten himself in super-duper shape, but it hasn't quite been MVP-level ball as I thought that it would be. But how do you think this goes for this team?
They got to do something here because that defense is atrocious. They don't get back on defense, and a lot of it is Luka Doncic. Just he doesn't have the energy to be the 40-point scorer, and who does have the energy to be 40-point scorer, 10 assists a game guy, and also run back on defense. But of the top 10 slowest guys in miles per hour defensively in the NBA, there's only one team that has multiple guys in that top 10. And the Lakers have 3 of them in Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Luka Doncic. They don't move. They don't play defense in the way that you have to in today's NBA to win championships. And so they got to find a way, Bomani, to upgrade defensively because they're going to get wiped out in the first round if they play the defense that they're having here. I don't think JJ Redick, as you saw with the rotation last year in the playoffs, that he went small for basically 48 minutes last year, did not trust Jackson Hayes, did not trust the bigs to play defensively what they needed to in the playoffs. They got to figure out a way that they can get some actual athletes out there and activity on the wing to cover up for 3 very offensively dominant players. I suspect you're going to hear a lot of Austin Reeves trade talks here in the next few weeks because I don't know if they're going to move off of LeBron, certainly not going to move off of Luka, but Austin Reeves, a guy that is, I think, duplicitous, not duplicitous, what's the word I'm looking for?
Repetitive, I think is probably the best way to put
repetitive, where he's
redundant.
A little bit redundant. His skill set of being a great ball-dominant guy who can score and pass, you already got 2 of the best all-time at it, Luka Doncic and LeBron James on the team. And so there's a lot of diminishing returns here with Austin Reeves, and I got to wonder if he's the guy that gets moved at the trade deadline to try to upgrade defensively because this team, it can't have 3 offensive juggernauts that don't play any defense.
2 things. One, I make that duplicitous mistake often. It was relatable content.
Duplicative? There. It's not the word I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think duplicative is closer. Duplicitous means he be lying.
Yeah, I know.
But it feels like it, right? Like it feels like it lands there. And number 2, they can trade Austin Reeves. I get it if they do. I really do. But they gonna have to explain that to the locals. The locals are some of the. Hey man, they ain't had it like this before, baby. Just a good old red-blooded, hairy American winning machine. You know what I'm saying? They ain't quite had it like that, boy.
Well, I'm trying to think of where would Bomani Jones like to see Austin Reeves play? Like what team do you think would be embraced the most by Austin Reeves?
Danny Ainge is on line 1. That's. I mean, look, the Celtics, of course, would enjoy it. But Danny Ainge is on. That being said, Danny Ainge, that's not. I'm not casting no aspersions on Danny Ainge because Danny Ainge was also the guy that told Ace Bailey, "I don't know what you think, but you're coming to Utah, son." Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the deal, right? To counterbalance some of that Ace.
Yeah, man. Austin Reeves, he's a most improved player of the year candidate. I mean, the way that he's been able to ball out over the last year or so. He's going to get a lot of phone calls about him, and he's on this very low contract, what makes it tough for trades, and he's going to be up for an extension here and a big contract. But, there's going to be teams, and that's the thing about Utah is like Walker Kessler makes a lot of sense on the Lakers, but after he had an injury that he's out for the rest of the year, he kind of crossed it off the list like Steve Buscemi, just be able to scratch the Utah Jazz off list. I don't see them making that trade, but there are other teams that could use Austin Reeves as the fulcrum of their offense. And I don't think the Lakers are that team anymore. I think they need to upgrade defensively. And JJ Redick, I don't think he's going to do another year of what they did last year in the postseason and just run these guys into the ground because they need to play both ends of the floor. And right now they're not.